Okay, all right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Art Sebastian, and so we're together for the next 45 minutes or so. First off, I want to say thank you to all of you for joining the session. Appreciate you coming in. And certainly a big thank you to the team at Treasure Data for putting the event on and supporting this sort of big initiative that we call CDP. We'll get into it. Just by way of introduction, my name is Art Sebastian. I've got about 25 years or so of experience in the retail and CPG space. So you can see some of the brands I worked for. And this is starting out as a kid in a grocery store, working my way up through operations, merchandising, marketing roles. In the last role I was in at Casey's, I was the Chief Marketing Officer. Casey's is a Fortune 500 convenience retailer based in the Midwest, third largest convenience store chain, fifth largest pizza chain. A really interesting business that I spent 5 years leading. Over the course of the summer, I left the corporate world to start my own business, the business called Next Chapter, and you can see the areas that I focus on. I do consulting for retailers and brands. I do some advisory work for tech companies and go in a little stealth mode on building some technology, not building a CDP, right? I think Treasure Data's got that part solved. But building some other elements just to kind of help the entire marketing stack continue to evolve. So that's what I'm up to, and I am happy to be here to maybe share a little bit of my view on this space and talk about it from a retailer point of view. And as I listened to a lot of the sessions this morning, I think all of us are saying really similar things in terms of being very data-centered, putting humans and people at the center of our marketing decisions, extending CDP beyond marketing. A lot of what you heard this morning are things that I believe in. So, you may not hear anything different in that regard, but I'll be a little open with why I've invested in this technology. I'll share some of those stories and how we thought about it as we built our business, and hopefully you pick up a couple of nuggets out of that. I've got about 30 or so minutes of talking, and then we are going to do some open Q&A, and then I, like many of you, will be here tonight into tomorrow as well if there's anything you want to chat about. So here's the agenda that I've laid out. I think it's always good to start with a little bit of context around the retail landscape. And I love the fact that there are so many different industries here at this event this week. I come from grocery and convenience, but it's nice to see all the other businesses here as well. I think we all face similar challenges. We'll get into how I've thought about customer data platforms and then just some ways I've activated against it. All right, so we'll get right in. I like to start with acknowledging the fact that there's been significant amount of activity across retailing this calendar year. I love that first column there that I call just driving excitement, and Amazon Prime, and there's actually 2 Amazon Prime days this year. That has had a massive halo effect on all of retail. I think Amazon called the first one they had earlier this year the biggest single sales day they've had as a company. So that's a big piece, and then Walmart did their version of Target, did theirs, Home Depot, so a lot of positive effect across retail. The first half of the year was all about Barbie, right? You can't ignore what that has done to the retail space, the amount of partnerships, the amount of content that came out of there, the engagement, et cetera. And then it seems like the back half of the year is all about Taylor Swift. So certainly a lot of excitement that finds its way to helping customers, helping retailers drive their business with customers. A lot of tech investments, that has not slowed down at all. A couple images I pulled up here, Whole Foods launching the Palm payment technology. I know a lot of retailers thinking through what that may look like for them. Convenience stores adding apps, ordering experiences, et cetera. A lot happening in tech. And then M&A in the retail space is, continuing to see consolidation. Kroger and Albertsons in the grocery space is probably the biggest, merger that we've seen in many, many years. But it's not all bright. There are challenges. You got store closures, you got the tech layoffs, you get all kinds of things happening across the industry. So high level, a lot happening in the retail space. Another thing that I've observed, and maybe you guys have seen this as well, a lot of chatter around the economy over the course of the year, right? And a couple stats I have on the left here point to the fact that the economy has actually been quite resilient as everyone was fearing the recession, et cetera. You know, GDP saw some growth. The labor markets remain tight. The number of open jobs with the available people remain tight. That's a good thing. Inflation, while that continued, we saw a little bit of slowing down coming out of Q2. So resilience was a key way to sort of describe the economy. And then if you look to the right, these are some of the things that I've paid attention to. Consumers are spending less and they're looking for deals. I saw this when I was recently in a retailer. I saw a shift towards private label. I saw a shift of more sales to products on deals and promotions. And so anytime you see that in retail, you start to get a little worried about, okay, what's going on here? Are we seeing the wallets get pinched? Those aggressive interest rate hikes that have hit us all, that'll begin to wear over time, right? It's pinching the bank accounts, the credit cards, all of that. And then the student loan payments that were paused. So you got a lot happening in the economy. There's some positive things, there's some other things that I think as retail industry, everyone needs to pay attention to. I think all of this is about the consumer, so certainly makes an impact on all of our businesses, no matter what sector we sit in. And then when you look at retail and you look at the revenue statistics, revenue's been up, and that's pretty good to see, but when you start adjusting for inflation, revenue's really down, right? So everyone's reporting their earnings releases and showing growth in revenue. You just control for the inflation, and I just took a look at total retail and grocery, and you see that revenue's actually down when you control inflation. And then overall retail foot traffic is also down. So consumers are pinched with that inflation, the high interest rates, that weighs on consumers. They're walking into stores less often. And you can see some of the stats across, movie theaters are up, given all the excitement from Barbie, et cetera. Discount and dollar is up, right? You hear a lot of really positive story coming out of Dollar General and so forth. But then when you look at the rest of retail, you see traffic is down. And again, I can tell you as a recently former retailer, I saw traffic down as well. So, when you're in this space, and you got inflation moving dollars up, you see traffic down, you start thinking as a retailer, well, what am I going to do here? How do I find a way to increase purchase frequency? How do I find a way to increase basket size? And so you need to talk to your customer. You need to develop a relationship. We can't just analyze these numbers and track them and think everything's going to be okay, right? So that's sort of the context there. And I also found this pretty interesting in that global technology spending is forecasted to grow from 2023 looking back to 22. So it's going to grow while retail sales will grow a smidge, and then you put the inflation control in there to see it's basically flat, slightly down. So the takeaway here is technology spending will outpace retail sales. So if you're in technology and you manage budgets and you want to invest and you want to do all that, that's a good thing, right? Technology spending continues. Retailers are investing in kind of long-term growth. But my takeaway from here is that, hey, this is a interesting spot to be this year, but for me, every dollar I spend counts. There are no freebies in this environment, given the economy, given the consumer. And so if I'm spending money on technology, it has to pay back. It has to be technology that'll drive growth. And so I think it's an important responsibility for anyone in technology and marketing or business to be considering. So what do we do about it? Well, a lot of folks this morning talked about what they're doing about it, and I'll probably just reiterate a lot of that in my own words. I think as marketers and technology folks at this event, we have one of two things in common. We are either looking for our first CDP because we know that we need it, we know that our business needs to talk to customers in a different way, and so you're here looking for that, so you want to come and learn more. Or you already have it, and you're already a customer and you're reaffirming that relationship with Treasure Data, or you have it with someone else and you're looking to make a change. So we all have that in common. We either want one or already have one. And so I think it's a good move to be here, given everything we just looked at in terms of the context. I think it's part of sort of future-proofing your business, getting to know your customer. You need the technology, you need the data, et cetera, to be able to do that. Okay, let's move into customer data platforms. This is another point of view, and again, not rocket science to folks, but again, when we're thinking about this stuff, I think it's important to set the context, is retail continues to shift towards omnichannel. And if you're in grocery or convenience, we have been behind, a decade behind, general merch, apparel, home electronics. Those guys, went after omnichannel a decade or so ago. So we've been behind in grocery and convenience. We relied on a customer turning left or right. We relied on having the right corner, and that's the single store mode. In the last 5 years, particularly throughout the pandemic, we accelerated this multi-channel because everyone started investing in digital. They launched their websites and loyalty programs. We put curbside pickup and we did delivery. So all that just really happened in the last, I'd call it 5 to 6 years. When I was at Meijer in 2017, that's a really good regional retailer, I had more curbside pickups than Walmart did, the world's largest retailer. So that's how recent all of that push was. So we were just in this multi-channel phase. Now, everyone is pursuing omni-channel. And so, okay, well, what does that mean? And hopefully the images here make it pretty easy to understand. It's take the customer, put them at the center. It's not about the website or the store or the website. It's the customers at the center of every experience, and you need to be really thoughtful. Well, how do you do that? You need data, you need technology, you need smart people. So I think all of retail is moving towards this omni-channel space, even the convenience channel, which is the latest to join the club. And as retailers, I think there's a huge opportunity to continue to evolve how you think about marketing. And so this is the approach that I used to take as the CMO is, you start with a human truth and a consumer insight. And then after you have that, you try to add tension to your marketing idea. And if your marketing idea doesn't have tension, it's probably not interesting. It's probably not going to break through all of the advertising that's out there. And then finally, as you go through that process, you need to zero in on your brand and who you are, and then your customer. So you see the customer continues to pop up throughout. Consumer is more broad. That's customer and prospective customers. But then as you build your marketing campaign, you're zeroing in on your customer. And so if you don't know your customer, how are you going to have a marketing campaign? I would say you're probably wasting money in some regard. And then this is very similar to, I think Kaz shared some numbers in the morning session, but I found it pretty interesting. I always think as a marketer's job is to develop relationships with customers, right? Anytime anyone asks me, hey, what's your role as the CMO at Casey's? I'd say it's to build relationships. It's not to sell more stuff. It's not to build an amazing TV ad. It's to build relationships. And when you think about relationships, if you think about those that you're most close to, likely your parents or your spouse or your kids or your family members or your best friends, you think about those relationships, you actually care about them, right? You work really hard to know them, understand them, so that you can delight them. Because if you don't, the relationship doesn't work out. That's the exact same thing in business when you're the CMO. You're building relationships with customers, and if you don't do it that way, they're going to go elsewhere. and spend money at another retailer. So I think the job is to develop relationships with customers, and the stats here are interesting. Again, we talked about it this morning, but customers say that emotional connection makes them come back. They expect that. So 86%, 75%, somewhere in there. Customers expect that. But when you ask the question to marketers, do you have the ability, the tool set? Are you capable of building that? They'll tell you they're not. So there's a gap between the expectation and the reality. And we all face it, and our job is to close that gap, keep it as tight as possible. In addition, the marketers have a ton of challenges, right? So if you're in marketing or you're a partner to marketing, you can relate to these challenges. The data is complicated. 90% of marketers spend days and weeks every month prepping the data. I can tell you early on my journey at Casey's, most of my team spent most of the month getting ready for the business review. Well, when are they working on the new marketing campaigns? When are they thinking about how to move the needle? Like, you can't because the data's complicated. It's a hot mess, right? Speed to insights. Marketers, in many regards, didn't have the access to the data, or they weren't plugged into what the merchandising and the business folks saw every day. That's, to me, a major problem, right? And marketers didn't have access to the category data or the business data. Nobody had access to the customer data because it just didn't exist. So that's a gap. And then lack of alignment. Anyone who works anywhere knows, unless you work for yourself and you're a company of one, you know the feeling of not being aligned, right? We're not aligned, and if you're in retail, why are we not aligned? Because no one knows what the heck the customer wants, and therefore we want what I want, what he wants, what he wants, what she wants, and has anyone asked, what does the customer want? So these are foundational issues that every marketer is dealing with, and then it has gotten tremendously more complicated in the recent years. And again, a lot of this stuff is things that we talk a lot about as marketers and technologists. Cookies are going away. So they've been going away, but they're finally going to fully go away soon. That's a problem if you're a marketer. How are you going to find people? How are you going to target them? Consumer privacy, everyone talks about CCPA, GDPR. 11 other states have new laws. And as a retailer that operated in 17 states, we had to watch every one of those to stay ahead of it. That's a big piece of concern to navigate around. Data silos. When I got to Casey's, data was all over the place, just all over the place. It was extremely unorganized and duplicated and not cared for. And so we had a whole process of organizing that, deduping it, putting it in a CRM before we graduated to a CDP. So everybody's dealing with some form of that. And then, of course, marketing attribution, right? If you're head of marketing here, like I was, you answer to the CFO on a constant basis around, hey, what did that do for us? And how can you prove it? And how can you tell? And all kinds of questions. So a lot of opportunity for the head marketers. And so, what do we do about that? Well, you gotta unify the data. Every single person on the stage this morning said that. We all know that. We gotta unify the data. There's so much about a customer that we need to pull together. And I can't just go to the loyalty database and see what Joe did when Joe scanned his loyalty card, and then go to the store transaction database to see what did Joe do when he didn't. And then, by the way, Joe has 2 credit cards and has Apple Pay, and I didn't sync that together, right? And in Google Analytics, I know when Joe created a session and clicked on a link, but I don't know that anywhere else. It just becomes unmanageable. And anyone in business can relate to that, because for many years we just didn't do anything about it. Did the best we could. But now, given all the context we said earlier, that's just not good enough. And our competitors who sit amongst us in the room or are not here are getting smarter, they're investing, And so I think, unifying the customer data is a really, really good starting point. And so as you unify that data, well, what do you do with it? I think it's pretty simple. You build trust. You build that relationship that is built on trust. So unify the data is the first step. Not easy, but doable. Many of you have done that or want to do that. I can tell you from experience, I've done it. It's worth it. And after you unify it, you enrich it. So what do you enrich it with? Third-party data, second-party data, my brand's data. I can tell you that I had unified data, 60 streams of data, 150 to 200 attributes on every record, and then I brought demographic data in from the outside. A lot of people do that. So you do the data match, you have demographics, and now you know a little bit more about your customer. But I also found a way to get their shopping data at competitive retailers through partnerships I had. And so, great use case there is my customer who's in my loyalty program that spends a lot of money with me cheats on me. They're promiscuous. They buy coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't like that, but I see that data come in, and I can ping them right away with a win-back offer to pull them into my store. So enriching the data, well, how do you do that? You gotta unify it. You gotta have a technology partner that has the infrastructure, that has the capability, that can keep it secure. You gotta be able to operate that and make something out of that. That leads you then to engaging the customer. And engaging isn't always about just pounding offers on customers and saying, buy this, buy that, here's the lowest price. A lot of times it's just showing them promotions that already exist. Sometimes it's creating that next best promotion. Sometimes it's reminding them that they're supposed to buy pizza for dinner on Friday night, but reminding them on Thursday, and maybe getting that order a little earlier. So engagement can be a lot of things. And then personalization, like anyone in retail or in brand, we looked at the one-to-all, one-to-many, one-to-some, one-to-one logic, and just using the data to move more and more of our marketing messaging towards one-to-some, one-to-all. And then the key, I think, is just having insights. So having your flywheel continue to spin. So as you unify the data, you enrich it, you engage, you personalize, you learn, and then the flywheel just continues. So sound easy enough? Again, you need data, you need technology, you need to build your strategy, et cetera. So, as I was thinking about this, and clearly there's no reason to say what is a CDP at this event, because everyone here is well aware of that, but really, in the most simplest terms, somebody just asked me this last week in an event, what is a CDP? Again, get a bunch of data, organize the data, unify the data, model the data, and activate it. Simple terms, right? Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, that's cool, what do we do about it? Like, how do we activate a CDP if I have one or I'm getting ready to launch one? So activating your first-party data with a CDP, there's many things that you can do, and I'll show some examples, but we can spend a lot of time talking about what's possible. So in the most simplest terms, here are 3 lanes that I've had some experience in. First is customer lifecycle journeys. As you acquire your customers, how do you move them through the life cycle so they get as much value as they can from you, and in turn, you get as much value from them. So again, you need to have technology to properly do that. I think you need a CDP to do that. Some will say, well, I can do that in my loyalty program. And the answer to that is you sure can for your loyalty members with the data that you have when the loyalty members tap their loyalty app. And that's it. If you want to do it more properly and holistically, you want to have more than the loyalty data. You want to have the credit card data. You want to have everything you know about that customer. So that's one way. The next way is the triggered marketing campaigns. I think there were some examples of that on the stage this morning. So what do I mean by that? We heard him say that this morning. tell me an example. At Casey's, like I said earlier, a convenience retailer, that means we have gas outside. Nearly everybody, unless you live in a major city and don't have a car, all of us are experiencing getting gas on a regular basis. So if you're getting gas at a Casey's, the second you dip your card or punch your loyalty program, my technology knows that you're there, right? It's going right up to the CDP and saying, check Joe, and we know that Joe is a frequent fountain drinker, and so we can push him when he's filling gas, sitting there that, hey, you know, there's a deal on fountain soda. So that can be a trigger, right? You did this, so let's put this in front of Joe. Or like I said, another trigger that I did in the past is you did a competitive purchase, like you bought coffee from Dunkin' or Starbucks or McDonald's, and I know you buy coffee from me. That can trigger, as soon as that data hits, I can send a message and an offer or a promotion, reminder or a nudge to buy that coffee from me next time. And then scheduling marketing campaigns. So, you know, all the retailers have some sort of marketing campaigns, whether you're selling apparel, pizzas like I did at Casey's, or whatever you're selling, leveraging the data to make sure that you're getting the right message to the right audience at the right time to the right channels. And so these are all the major use cases that I've experienced leveraging a CDP to build that relationship with customers. So there's just a little bit of a double click on each of these, and each of those examples, or those pillars, if you will, those could be their own presentations. We can talk a lot about each of those, but I'll just give you a visual here of some examples of life cycles. So here's one that I've used before. So if you go all the way to that back, you know, you're attracting a customer. So you're really trying to build awareness and pull that customer in. And once you acquire them, you've got the data. Now we can target them in digital media, or even appropriately target them in store. And so once you get past that and you get into this blue area, this is where, in my opinion, the CDP is really doing its job. It's really cranking. This is where you set automation to nurture, engage, retain, and recover the customer. So everything from, hey, you transacted with us, but you haven't joined loyalty. So put them into that flow. They join loyalty, hit them with the welcome email. They get the enrollment offer. They didn't transact yet, well, hit them with the next offer. So just leverage the technology and the automation to move them through the life cycle. The no-brainer would be that my best customer at Casey's is the one that engaged me at the pump, ordered online, and shopped in store. And so I leveraged the technology to make sure that I studied every possible iteration of that and teed that up to the customer on a constant basis so that I could create most valuable customers. So that's an example of just moving the customer through the life cycle. Triggered marketing campaigns, you know, again, a very, very practical example, but I always like, you know, showing an image of it just to make it hit home. So in this particular case, I could go to the CDP as a marketer in real time, and I used to ask my marketing team, hey, let's go fish for the right fish, right? So in this particular case, I look for a morning day part customer that is between the hours of 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. So now I have identified, you know, 10 million of those. And then I want to find, of those folks, how many actually subscribe to emails, meaning they're okay getting all the emails that we want to send them. So that dwindles it down to 4 million customers. Shop the store in the morning, say yes to emails. Now you start to get really interesting. How many of them purchased coffee in the last 8 weeks from my store, but not a hot breakfast sandwich, which we're not happy about because we had just launched new breakfast sandwich lineup, improved ingredients, put marketing behind it, but there were 2 million of those customers who hadn't done that. So pretty simple. Email promotion, buy a coffee, get $1 off any breakfast sandwich. I don't have to advertise $1 off breakfast sandwich to everybody. Don't have to do that, because in those cases, you're subsidizing sales. You know, the folks that were gonna buy it anyway, they don't need the $1 off, but in this particular case, I found the right audience, I communicated to them what the promotion was. So that's 2 million customers. And then if you just start factoring in a 25% promotion conversion rate, that gets you to the 500,000 customers now buying breakfast sandwich, times the $249 minus the dollar discount gets you $749 in incremental revenue. Like you kind of paid for your CDP and technology investment running one smart marketing campaign. Now, obviously, you got to apply gross margin, you got to do all kinds of other things to it, but I'm giving you just the way that we've thought about it in its simplest terms is if you do things like this on a constant basis and you set the automation and the technology is doing the work for you and you don't subsidize revenue, you can quickly pay off the tech a lot faster. And I had to answer a lot of these questions to the CFO or to the audit committee as a publicly traded company. On a constant basis, I was asked, how much did you invest in what? And prove it to me. And so I would pull these together and take it to a publicly traded board of directors in a lot more detail than this, obviously, but you guys get the point. And then when we do that, that is 500,000 customers who have in their recent purchase history a breakfast sandwich, and they're more likely to order that again. So we did this over and over and over, and before I invested in a CDP, we did none of this. We'd just say it's $1 off for everyone and hope that we sold more, right? It seems semi-comical, but that's the world we lived in when you're spraying and praying marketing versus being very focused on a segment and an audience. The scheduling marketing campaigns. So again, if you're a retailer or a brand, you're familiar with this type of stuff. I set up an email just to the loyalty members to give them early access to this pepperoni pizza. So you need a tool to be able to say, who are those people? You need to be able to track them. I use the CDP fed my app and web homepage hero image that once they were in a signed in state, I could customize that. So here, this is the app homepage. I'm looking at all pizza buyers who haven't ordered wings yet. The image changes because the CDP told me they buy pizza, they haven't bought wings. I want to tee that up for them. This is an existing promotion. I didn't create a new one, but it's just putting it in front of the right audience. The email that went out to customers, the pizza buyers who have ordered at least one side. So I know that they're open to a side. They probably have a family. And so I'm going to upsell them a 2-side promotion. So again, seems all logical, but without having the data, it's hard to do that. It's nearly impossible. And retailers are shifting from linear TV to CTV, and that gives you significant ability to target. And all the things that we could do in digital and owned media, you can do in this space. And so we started doing that as well. We didn't want to just run an ad for everybody. We want to run an ad against a very specific audience because I'm paying for that ad. So you want to be efficient. At Casey's, we built a really robust digital ecosystem. We built it so that we can differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. This gives you just a visual of some of the things that we did. Launched an e-com program, a loyalty program, had all the third-party marketplaces, launched a car wash subscription that's actually a pretty lucrative business in terms of gross margin. I was really excited about things like AI voice ordering at the bottom. That's Ava, AI voice assistant. We used to get 10 million phone calls in for pizza. Folks would call our stores ordering 10 million times a year. And with our employees, they sometimes answer, sometimes don't. Sometimes friendly, sometimes not. Almost never upselled. But I replaced that with NLP-based AI voice technology. And then, you just can move the needle. You answer every phone call. Every customer interaction is consistent. Everyone has an upsell. And then as we got smarter, we could segment those customers in the CDP based on how they interacted. So anyway, a ton of stuff we invested in. But if you think about that digital experience we created, that is supported by world-class marketing technology. And this is, I just thought let me draw a picture in simple terms, how I think about it. Data, activation, analytics, and it all starts with the CDP. right? If you pull that out, I don't know how we do this. It just sort of doesn't work, right? You go back to spray and pray and send the ad or the promotion to everybody. But this is what we end up building. So everything happens in that CDP, whether we're going to owned and operated media or we're doing the offsite, the paid media. Then when you kind of close the loop with the analytics at the end. And then along my journey, a little convenience store based in Des Moines, Iowa, we added AI. And so I, kind of just drew a line there. That's not really the technical diagram, as you guys know, but we added AI to get a lot smarter, because as my data set grew, as the amount of use cases increased, as the success was shown to the board, they said, do more of that, shift more of the marketing dollars to that. I started getting more marketing budget, right? So a lot of people ask me, how'd you get more marketing dollars? How'd you get more dollars to invest in technology? I'd tell you guys off the record later, but all that grew because we did it the right way. And so as it grew, it outgrew my team, and I had to leverage AI. And it's, in simple terms, there's just so much data and so many things to do that people couldn't keep up with it. So we put that layer in, and we did very simple things like channel optimization at first. Right? This is sifting through all those channels and saying which one has the highest likelihood to get opened and clicked on or drive conversion. No-brainer is just talk to that set of customers that way. If they don't like app push, stop sending them app push. By the way, there's a cost every time I send an app push, right? And there's a cost for SMS, and for some odd reason, SMS was 10x the cost of an app push. And so you're thinking about all of this and maximizing every dollar. Time send, we used to, early in my journey, just push the email out at the same time. Well, people open emails at different times. They respond to it in the morning or at night or whenever, but we can learn that as you have history. The AI sifts through that, and I can say for this group of customers, they want emails, they want it in the morning, and we even started optimizing visuals. They respond better to a cheese pull. And so for 3 million people, they got the email in the morning with the cheese pull. For 2 million people, they get the Facebook ad at night after work, and it's a styled and propped image of the pizza. So again, we're just doing some simple things here to make the marketing dollars go a little further. We got a little bit more advanced where we'd create several templates of the email, and as the emails were getting opened in real time, the unopened were changing. And so then when you finally opened it 2 days after the first group, you got the optimized visual and subject line and copy and all that. I won't bore you with that, but you can get really, really smart. So the automation is doing things we could never do as humans. I had a small marketing automation team, a manager and 2 people, running a program that had 7 million loyalty members, sending 200 million messages a month, all on the back of CDP and marketing technology. So here's the simple summary from my talk. And again, it's probably similar to what we've all heard this morning through a lens of a guy who just came out of retail and spent 25 years there. The context is the economy is resilient, the customers are feeling pressure. So beware, no matter what business you're in, if you sell tech, if you sell consulting, if you're a brand, if you're a retailer, we can all relate to that. There's a lot happening in retail, It's a very challenging industry. I spent my entire life in it. I think the glass is more than half full. Tech spending is forecasted to increase. It will outpace retail sales. Hooray for anyone who likes to spend money on tech, most of us. But that means that you have pressure and responsibility. So what do? No matter what business you're in, even if you work for Treasure Data, right? No matter what business you're in, put your customer at the center of your programs, right? So no duh, everybody has said that. Put the customer at the center. If you're in retail or brand, I think you need to launch a customer data platform. You need to. I have experienced life without it. I've experienced implementing it and launching it and growing it. And I can tell you from my experience, and happy to talk about that in more detail, I highly recommend it. And then as you mature, No need to outrun your own self, but as you mature, bring AI in, bring simple use cases. I launched it for channel optimization, send time optimization. I launched all kinds of chat bots to help with my service call center. I launched the voice AI. So there's many use cases on how to do that, but that's as you mature. So that's sort of the summary. You know, when I put my retail hat on, I used to love to quote, I think Teddy Roosevelt, but there's many people who had this quote, to whom much is given, much is expected. And when you're a retailer, you're given a whole lot. The company's giving me budget, resources, freedom to make decisions, freedom to come out here and pick partners to work with. And customers are giving me their dollars. They're giving me their trips. And you saw dollars are down, trips are down. So I'm getting a lot. So in return, I'm responsible to deliver. I'm responsible to deliver trust, security, personalized experiences, not spray and pray. So that's all I've got. If there are questions or anything you guys want to chat about, I'd love to get into it for a few minutes here.